Okay, so good day everyone. The topic for today's lecture is about pointers. Let's revisit about the concepts of variables first. So let's say we have this line char A. So basically we are declaring a variable A with a type char. So what actually happens when we declare variables? So with this statement, C will then reserve a byte in memory to store the variable A. And that memory is located at a certain address. And C has been keeping track of variables as well as this statement, int xyz equals 50. So this statement instructs the compiler to allocate a location for the integer variable xyz and put the 50 in the location. So suppose we have after the declaration and after assigning 50, what the compiler does is allocate the variable into a certain location or address. So we have here XYZ, suppose it is stored in address na 1380. So this is the index of the address where this variable XYZ is located. Okay, and then this XYZ has a value of 50. So during the execution of the program, the system always associates the name XYZ with the address 1380. So basically, we are creating a mapping between the variable name and their addresses. Okay, so the value 50 can be accessed by using either the name XYZ. So as you have experienced in your program. If you want to use the value 50 that was stored in XYZ, you simply use the variable name XYZ. Or you can also use the address 1380. So using the address, you can also access this value 50. So since memory addresses are just numbers, they can also be assigned to some variables which can be stored in memory. So such variables that hold memory addresses are called pointers. Okay, so since pointer is a variable, its value is also stored in some memory location. Okay, so suppose we assign the address of XYZ to a variable P. So we have P, and you know that this operator is the address operator. And then if you remember, the XYZ is the variable that we have declared in the previous slide. So adding this operator, it tells your compiler that we want to access its address. Okay. So since we are assigning the address of XYZ to the variable P, we can say that P is said to point to the address of the variable XYZ. So here's the illustration below. So you have the XYZ, your variable, and it is mapped to its address, which is in 1380. And you know that the XYZ was assigned with a value of 50 earlier. And then here comes the pointer P. So we also declare another variable P. And then as you can see, we have assigned the address of XYZ. So its content is the address of XYZ, which is 1380. So basically, this P, the contents of P are directed towards the address of XYZ. So since P is also a variable, so we can see here that the compiler also allots a location or an address for this pointer P. So each memory cell has an address associated with it, and each cell also stores some value. So we should not confuse the address referring to a memory location with the value stored in that location. Okay, so here's another illustration. Suppose we have this memory, and then you have several locations, and then which can be mapped to a certain variable. So suppose you have a variable I here, and it has a value of 23. So you can say that this variable I is mapped to 104 address, and also the I has a value of 23. Okay, so the variables name memory locations which hold values. Okay, so this 1024 again is just the address, the X is the variable name, and 32 is just its value. Okay, so when we declare a pointer, it is just a variable whose value is the address of another variable. So how can we tell the compiler that we are declaring a pointer? So what we can do is just add this pointer operator or the asterisk before the name of the variable. So the pointer that we have declared here doesn't actually point to anything yet. So as you can see, we have not assigned any address to our pointer. So what we can do is make it point to something that already exists, or a variable that already a variable that already exists. Okay, so this is the general syntax of a pointer declaration. So you specify the data type of of uh, of the variable that it points to, and then the pointer operator followed by the pointer name. So again, these three things are what you have to remember. You have to specify that it is a pointer by using an asterisk to tell your compiler that the variable pointer name is a pointer variable. And the pointer name, since it is a variable, it needs a memory location. And the pointer name points to a variable of the type data type. So for example, if it points to a variable which is declared as an integer, so you should also declare this pointer as an integer. So if it points to a variable that was declared as a float, you should also specify that this data type is a float. So next, after we are done declaring a pointer, we are now going to initialize a pointer. Pointers should be initialized when they're defined, or they can be assigned a value. So initially, you could initialize a pointer as a null, as a zero, or an address. So initializing it with a null value, you are telling your compiler that the pointer is pointing to nothing. And when you initialize a pointer to 0, it is equivalent to initializing a pointer to null. However, this keyword null is more preferable. Okay. Because when 0 is assigned, it's first converted to the pointer of the appropriate type. And the value 0 is the only integer that can be assigned directly to a pointer variable. Okay, so you cannot assign other integer values to a pointer, only a value of 0. Okay, so as mentioned, you can initialize a pointer by using a null operator, or you can assign it with 0. And you can also initialize a pointer using this operator. So the address operator. Okay, so remember that when we use the address operator before a certain variable, we are telling the compiler that we want to access its address. So for example, this line where we assign the address of XYZ to P. So we are basically saying that the address of XYZ, let's say it's 1380, assuming it's 1380, that will be the value of P. So the address operator can also be used with a simple variable or an array element. So you can use this address operator on a simple variable. This one is an array element, so you are accessing the first element of the array 0, as well as